Easy Explain, Introduction to the Philosophy of History by G.W.F. Hegel, Chapter 1, The Methods of History. So for Hegel here, there are three methods of history. The first one is original history. The second is reflective history, and he goes further into breaking this method down into four types. So when you're reflecting on history, this can be universal, it can be pragmatic, it can be critical, or it can be specialized. All four of these types of history are reflective for Hegel. And the third method of history is philosophic, which is this. That's what he's doing. That's his own method. So here, we're just going to go method by method, and especially for reflective, we're going to break down those four types, just give them basic definitions, sometimes taking quotes from Hegel from chapter 1, to just paint a picture of how he's categorizing history, how he's systematizing it, to get to what he's doing and why what he's doing is different and special. So we're going to start with the first method of history, the original history. So what is this? Kind of paraphrasing what Hegel says about this from a few different places throughout chapter 1. So Hegel is saying that it relies on accounts and reports of others. Think of primary sources, right? Eyewitness, first-hand accounts. He's concerned with people who knew what they wanted. It's straight, direct, and to the point. It's very factual, very truthful. It transforms present events into representational works, right? So we're getting this more of a sense of abstract meaning from original history, right? If you read back and look at things from the American Revolution, the French Revolution, which Hegel was very impacted by, you can find some sort of representational meaning from these works. And when you're actually doing or reading original history, you're going to find that the speech itself represents the culture of that time in history that you're looking at, right? So for Hegel, original history is what most of us would think of as reading something that is historical, right? Some kind of historical document from a certain time in a certain mode of speech. Hopefully that one's not too crazy. It doesn't seem too crazy for Hegel. Where he really starts to lose people is as we move into the second method, what this reflective history is, that he further breaks down into four different types. So first quote here from Hegel, what reflective history is. Hegel says, "It is history whose presentation goes beyond the present in spirit and does not refer to the historian's own time." So this is where we start to actually look back and write on history that we were not a part of, right? Think of this as being almost like academic-based, scholarly-based, research-based history, right? You're going to be writing on history that you did not live, you did not experience firsthand. And again, there's four types of this. So the first type of reflective history, this is what Hegel is going to call universal history. So the aim of this is to provide an overview to an entire history, whether it's of a country, of a whole people, or of the world. So if you're going to provide a universal history of a country, this is, pretty much original history for Hegel, right? Except for you are not living in that country at the time. You're going to reflect on it. You're going to look back at it. If you're going to provide a universal reflective history of a people, this can start to be specialized. This is the fourth type, right? We'll see a little bit more of this below, right? This is very, very unique, very, very special. Same thing with the world. You can provide a universal reflective history of the world. Think of your textbooks on world history here, right? A little bit more on this. The historian at work here is going to be elaborating on historical material, trying to connect dots, dig a little bit deeper. And the speech is going to represent the historian's culture, right? So if I'm assembling a reflective universal history, I'm going to write it in my language. I'm not going to write it in Old English, right? Although it might be a history I'm trying to assemble taken from the time of when Old English was the present tongue. So that's the first type. The second type of reflective history is pragmatic. And here I have a bit of a larger quote, a bit of a larger selection from chapter 1 here from Hegel. I think does a pretty good job at painting a picture of what he means by this. So Hegel says, when we are occupied with a remote world of the past, that world becomes present to the mind through the mind's own activity. And that recaptured world is the mind's reward for its labor. Second part of this, the events vary, but they are connected into one pattern in their universal and inner meaning. This is what negates the event as past and makes it present, bringing this history into the present through our own reflection in our minds, making it more real. He goes on, pragmatic reflections, abstract though they might be, are thus what is in fact present, and they bring the accounts of the past to life in our present-day world. But whether reflections of this kind are really filled with interest and vitality depends on the mind of the author. Right, so he was trying to get at here, how real can you make the past? Right, when you're reflecting on this history that you're working on, you're trying to put yourself in those shoes, you're trying to make it current and present and real for us now. You're trying to make it pragmatic, practical, useful, applicable. That's the work that's being done here in this second type of reflective history, the pragmatic. Moving on to the third type of reflective history, critical history. Got one selection here I think does a pretty good job of summing this up. Hegel says, what is here presented is not history itself, but a history of historical writing, and a critical evaluation of historical accounts together with an inquiry into their truth and trustworthiness. What is meant to be exceptional here consists in the ingenuity of the author in extorting something new from the historical accounts, not the things in themselves. Right, so critical history, think pretty much exactly what it sounds like. This is your academic deep dive, going back to the sources, criticizing it, analyzing it, pulling it apart, finding something new, finding new meaning. You're providing a history of historical writing. Right, not exactly history itself. Think like a level up in terms of analysis. Finally, the fourth type of reflective history, specialized. We're back to it, right? We saw a little bit of it universal, of a people from the get-go. But Hegel says that history is a part of the greater whole, so specialized, just like universal. And here we start to see him transitioning to his philosophic history, right? This is what he's doing. This is very specialized. But he does say there has to be some universal viewpoints here. Think of specialized history as when you're providing a history of art, a history of philosophy, like he's doing, or a history of a people, to connect back to earlier. Finally, the end of chapter 1 here, the third method of history, largely Hegel's project, what makes what he's doing so special. He says this: the idea is truly the guide of nations of the world, and spirit, as its rational and necessary will, is what guides and has guided the course of events in the world. To recognize it in the way it guides the world is our present aim. So this is Hegel laying out some key terms for the first time, what he means by the idea, what he means by spirit, what the mission is for history here, for world history coming together, and he's going to decipher it, right? He's going to make it clear to us. He's going to do this method of history known as philosophical history. That's his project coming up across the following 5 chapters. For now, this is chapter 1, and I hope this helped.